Microchips. The foundation of everything digital we're using today. Kind of mysterious and definitely a fascinating world of their own. This is a memory chip from the 1980s, able to store 32 kilobytes of information, just a couple pages of plain text. A tiny microscope allows us to take a look at the insides of this so-called EEPROM, an electronically erasable, programmable read-only memory chip. Every one of these tiny shapes could hold a fragment of information, a single bit in a grid of thousands and thousands of little electrical switches. If something this old, this small, is already so intricate, what does that say about the chips that came after? Processors take the same idea and push it far beyond anything visible here. Artifacts from different eras and design philosophies. Each of those represents a unique moment in time. So let's take a look at central processing units from 1992 to 2010. We are going to revisit underdogs, classics, and even a mid-80s graphics processor as a special treat. The IBM PowerPC 601. This IBM PowerPC 601 from '92 packs 2.8 million transistors. It's manufactured in 0.6 micron, meaning the transistors and interconnects size is about 1/15 the width of a human hair. 1 micron is 1,000th of a millimeter. Pretty small to the human eye, but processors have long moved in the nanometer range. What makes the 601 stand out is its blue body and the wires connecting the core to the outside world. This particular beauty runs at 80 MHz and draws a little bit more than 10 watts of power. A ridiculous amount when compared to modern CPUs, but decent for its time. It's a 32-bit CPU and the first implementation of the IBM's PowerPC RISC architecture for the mainstream market. Used primarily by IBM and Apple, this processor was advanced for its time. Its reduced instruction set design allowed it to execute code more efficiently than many contemporaries. Descendants of this CPU family were used in Sony's PlayStation 3, Microsoft Xbox, the GameCube, and Wii. As a small side fact, the processor tagged along with the Motorola XPC 970, a clock driver, making sure the 601 kept its rhythm. Also notable for this processor was the relatively large level 1 cache of 32 kilobytes, giving this CPU an extra speed boost compared to its main competitor, the Intel Pentium II. Introduced in 1993, the legendary Intel Pentium was a processor that defined an entire era of personal computing. If you grew up in this time, you certainly remember Intel's crazy advertising back then. This particular unit is from 1996, has 3.3 million transistors, and was manufactured in a 0.35 micron process. It was mainly targeted at desktop computers running DOS or Microsoft Windows. Native 32-bit support and backboard compatibility with 16-bit ensured users could run Windows 3.1 or Windows 95 while still keeping access to a long-established world of 16-bit DOS applications. This processor runs at 166 MHz, drawing approximately 15 watts. Level 1 cache was modest, with only 16 kilobytes. That means 8 kilobytes of instruction and 8 kilobytes of data. What really made a difference was its support for external level 2 cache on the motherboard. Performance could vary significantly depending on how well the motherboard handled that level 2 cache. A cache is crucial for processing speed. It's a fast memory for the CPU that stores data the processor is likely to use soon. Early CPUs had only small caches because they were expensive to make, took up a lot of space on a chip, and were hard to run at the same high speed as the processor itself. As process technology shrank, cache sizes could be increased, improving performance. Early implementations often relied on a small level 1 cache on the CPU itself and an external level 2 cache. Later on, large level 3 caches became the norm. Today, AMD is known as one of the biggest names in computing, but it didn't start that way. Back in the 1990s, AMD was a scrappy competitor to Intel, constantly pushing to match or surpass Intel's performance while exploring more innovative and sophisticated CPU designs. From their early x86 processors to modern Ryzen chips, AMD has always tried to stand out in a market dominated by Intel. This is the AMD K5 from 1996. It has 4.3 million transistors at a process of approximately 0.35 micron. With 116 MHz and the power draw of 16 watts, it's AMD's first x86 CPU to be developed in-house. The technical design had potential to outperform the Pentium due to a more sophisticated architecture, but not consistently. Nevertheless, a nice try by AMD to stir up the market. Internally, this is a RISC processor with an x86 decoding front end. It was too late to market, apart from that a great chance for AMD and a beautifully looking unit. In mid-1997, the processor race was on fire. Look for the Intel Inside sticker, it's only good if it's Intel. Intel here, Intel there, blah 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 blah. Did I love the Pentium II? Heck yes, I did. It shipped in a widely different form than any other processor, looking sleek and cool. This model boasts 7.5 million transistors in a 0.35 micron process. It runs at 233 MHz, drawing about 30 watts. The external level 2 cache for this model was an impressive 512 kilobytes. That's half of a megabyte, a lot for the time. Cooling was definitely required. Here you can see a large passive heatsink. The CPU often shipped in so-called boxed versions, meaning an OEM heatsink and fan was attached to the CPU, making sure your PC was always noisy enough to not forget that it's, a PC. Now, about the design. The Pentium II came in a so-called single-edged contact cartridge. Boy, is this nerdy! And connected to slot 1 mainboards, which allowed for a hassle-free installation. The CPU also has this intriguing hologram sticker on it, depicting the processor core. Trivia? You certainly had a hard time damaging the processor or installing it in the wrong way. The cartridge system was just convenient. More trivia? Here's a classic Apple advert for that time. A lot of classics were played on this CPU. Combine it with a Voodoo 2 or even a Voodoo 3 and this CPU flies, as it easily breaks the 300 MHz barrier. The IBM PowerPC 750. Kind of a big thing for Apple in late 1997, this processor is known as the PowerPC G3 or PowerPC 750. It was a co-development of the so-called AIM alliance, Apple, IBM and Motorola. This processor has 6.35 million transistors at approximately 0.25 micron. With 350 MHz and less than 2 watts of power draw, this CPU had impressive specs for the time and also supports an external level 2 cache up to 1 megabyte. At the time, most processors shared their cache and memory bus. The PowerPC 750 separated them, giving a higher bandwidth. It slightly outperformed the Pentium II while consuming less power, at least in Mac typical situations, whatever that means. It powered the original iMac and PowerMac G3 machines. And if you've ever played Nintendo Wii, you already know what the CPU is capable of.
Yeah, look at the processor calculating all that shit.
Not the best performance, but excellent efficiency. The Wii used a processor very close to the G3. Intel Pentium III Xeon. Boy, what a beast. Around the year 2000, this Intel processor was meant for servers and workstations. I couldn't find precise data on the transistor count, but rumors are 28 million at the 0.18 micron process. This particular unit runs at 700 MHz, draws approximately 35 watts, and was taken from a compact ProLiant DL580 server I used to own when visiting university. It uses slot 2 as the connector. This is also a point in time where manufacturing processes shrunk further to 0.18 micron, enabling higher frequencies and more transistors. Trivia? There's not much trivia to tell. The slot 2 Xeon is one of my favorite processors because it's bulky, got lots of level 2 cache, and can easily be used in workstations or servers without much hassle. I remember using a dual slot 2 configuration back then, acting as a 3D Studio Max render node. Did its job, and I was stupid enough to sell it. Good luck getting a non-server dual slot 2 mainboard today. Motorola PowerPC G4. As manufacturing processes improved, more transistors in the same space meant more speed, but also less power consumption, naturally leading to higher clock rates and more heat. In 1999, the CPU race was literally hot, but not for the G4. With 10.5 million transistors and a 0.2 micron process, it only drew about 17 watts at a clock speed of 450 MHz, lower than many other desktop CPUs of the time. As every good CPU comes in pairs, this board has 2 units of a Motorola pilot production prototype. These are from a limited production volume of prototypes tested and qualified for real-world use, whatever that's supposed to mean. The PowerPC G4 also introduced LTWAG, also called Velocity Engine, similar to Intel's MMX. It improved performance drastically when using optimized code, up to 30%. In contrast to Intel's MMX, LTWAG was more sophisticated, resulting in Intel to follow suit and eventually develop SSE, a standard which is still used in modern Intel CPUs. Rest assured, this dual processor configuration still feels snappy and confident, even today. Running macOS 10 is a blast, and several applications profit from the dual CPU setup. I used this opportunity to renew the heat compound in a kind of sloppy way, but this machine just has to do its job and will gratefully accept this way too large drop of Arctic silver. The rather unloved AMD Sempron. The cheap version of the legendary Athlon XP. I'll keep this one quick. This specimen from 2004 has an undisclosed amount of transistors at 0.13 micron. It runs at a mere 1500 MHz and consumes 60 watts, at a performance rating of 2200 MHz. AMD's attempt to keep up with Intel's higher clock rates. A notable fact was the very low price of approximately $50 at time of introduction. Based on the Athlon XP, it replaced the low-end Duron, making it a direct competitor to Intel's Celeron line. IBM PowerPC 970. Oh no, another IBM CPU. But it looks gorgeous, and seeing this CPU in real life had me fall in love with it instantly. Initially released in 2002 as the final iteration of the PowerPC line, this unit from 2004 was the PowerPC 970 FX, an improved version of the PowerPC G5. Thought as the ultimate game changer for Apple, it boasted 58 million transistors at 0.09 micron with up to 2.7 GHz. Derived from the Power 4 chip, the PowerPC G5 can also be seen as the first consumer implementation of a 64-bit CPU next to the AMD Athlon 64. Apple and the PowerPC architecture have always been what defined Apple as the underdog, always trying to catch up, an outcast, often close to death, but at the same time it also resulted in highly optimized applications like Final Cut, Logic, Photoshop, video encoders, and even Quake-free had a little bit of LTVAC optimizations. All in all, it makes the PowerPC G5 the last iteration, marking the end of an era. And now we have also reached the point where simply adding multiple processors, like the multiprocessing approach used in the PowerPC G4 shown previously, becomes less exciting. Instead, multi-core designs where multiple processing cores sit on a single chip become the standard for improving performance. Because of that, our next processor is a big jump to the year 2010. The Intel Xeon X5670. In early 2010, this processor had approximately 1170 million, that's 1.17 billion transistors. Manufacturing process has already moved from micron to nanometer, with 1 nanometer being 1 millionth of a millimeter. This Xeon uses 32 nanometer, runs at up to 3.33 GHz and consumes a whopping 95 watts. The good thing, it offers 6 cores. Pins are gone and have been superseded by flat contact pads called Land Grid Array, short for LGA. If you know the pain of pins on a CPU, you will probably love LGA, because now you can rack the socket on your mainboard way more easily, resulting in even more electronic waste. Yay! The last processor in this series is a jump back to the very beginnings of technology as we know it. The Texas Instruments TMS-34 from 1986. It's a fully programmable graphics processor, which means it handles drawing lines, math and raster operations on its own. Think of it as a CPU optimized for graphic primitives, an early ancestor to everything GPU related we use today. It effectively took work of the main CPU and shipped with a library of primitives to draw stuff. Notable uses for this chip were arcade machines, like Narc from 1988. I mean, look at this shit, it looks awesome for a late 80s game. Other games using the TMS-34 were NBA Jam from 93, Mortal Kombat from 92, and Rampage World Tour from 97. Texas Instruments also tried to establish a graphics standard called Tiger, but VGA won the race eventually. The TI-34 is very much an underdog, but a lovely looking one. Its long use in arcade machines until the mid-90s and Texas Instruments' efforts to create one of the first sophisticated graphics APIs are an example of pioneering computer work. With that said, we've reached the end of the video. What was your favorite CPU? Which personal stories do you have to tell? I would love to read your experiences in the comments. Also, feel free to correct any mistakes I made or add supplemental info, although a lot of research and personal experience goes into the making of my videos, there's always room for improvements. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.